I really didn't have a clue what diplomats did. I didn't have even an image. I didn't realize it was available as a career path until I found myself in it.
We're honored to have His Excellency Gavin Buchan, the ambassador of Canada to Romania, Bulgaria, and the Republic of Moldova.
How do I figure out what is really going on here? And I fell in love with multilateral negotiations. That's a passion that stayed with me through the rest of my career. Romania is going through a challenging time right now economically. The deficit is astronomical, and as someone who has a reasonable understanding of economics, something absolutely has to be done about it.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Expert Hour, the podcast where we explore ideas, stories, and experiences that shape leadership, society, and the world we live in. I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest whose career spans diplomacy, public service, and international engagement. We would like to thank our partners from the Intercontinental Athene Palace Bucharest for hosting the podcast, and we're honored to have His Excellency Gavin Buchan, the ambassador of Canada to Romania, Bulgaria, and the Republic of Moldova. Hello, Ambassador, and thank you for joining us today.
Very happy to be here, Vasile.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today, to tell us your story, how you managed to become who you are today, how you chose this path of diplomacy, how you became ambassador in Romania, and therefore, please give us some background. Who's the ambassador when he's not the ambassador?
All right. Do you want me to start at the beginning?
Yes.
All right.
That would be easier to follow.
Well, I'll start by saying I'm a classic Canadian in the sense that I'm an immigrant. I was actually born in Scotland, and I lived there till I was 8 years old, at which point we moved to Newfoundland in Canada. And Newfoundland, if you've never heard of it, is the province in the ultimate east. We're closer to Rome than we are to Vancouver. That was where I grew up. That was where I did my schooling.
After that first start of life of education, where did your steps took you? College, or what we call university, bachelor studies, maybe masters?
Yeah. I started university in my hometown in St. John's, Newfoundland, when I was 16. A bit early because I'd done some schooling in the UK, and that gave me an accelerated start. And I studied philosophy. That was, for me, for a very long time, Romania. It was sitting there on my shelf.
Okay, so yeah, but it was there. It was on the shelf, Romania. And now, when coming here, and I include also Bulgarian Republic of Moldova, what was, I'm trying to be, so what was, you believed people would know about Canada and they didn't? What was?
I think probably largely on the commercial side. I expected people to be aware of Canadian, what things that Canada manufactures. I'd expected people to be a bit more aware of Canadian culture. But my expectations were not limitless, because I know we live in the shadow of our southern neighbour. And when people talk about transatlantic relations, they're often really meaning relations with the United States. So the challenge for a Canadian ambassador is to come into a situation like that and say, hey, did you know that Canada has had 50 years of nuclear relationship with Romania, and 20% of the electricity in the country comes from Canadian nuclear reactors at Chernivtsi, right? That sort of, you have to sort of seize people by the collar and say, did you hear this?
So, even though exactly the energy sector, so there's several collaborations, like connections between Romania and Canada, but probably not so many known to the wide general public. Because for Romanians, Canada is something far away but very developed. It's one of the countries that we see always in the rankings on the top places for life,
Human Development Index, GDP.
But also we connected with at the beginning of the 90s, it was where immigrants went to. So it was seen as a land where you wanted to go. And then it was also the connection with Nadia Comaneci. So everybody also knows that. And now wanted to ask, what do you, from obviously when you are there, people know in Canada about Romania? Do they know something about, like, the general public, not people who have to know?
Yeah. I'd say Nadia Comaneci is very much up there still. Gheorghe Hagi, also in the public awareness in the sporting culture in Canada. And other than that, the sad reality is most Canadians think Dracula. Something more or less cooked up by an Irishman 130 years ago. But that is what immediately surfaces when people hear Romania, or better yet, Transylvania, because that's what's been driven by the North American cultural machine for the last 60 years.
So you're being asked when you go back to, how is it to live so close to Dracula? And
although, you know the irony, my brother-in-law came to visit and he is genuinely allergic to sunlight. So we thought Romania, well, maybe they've got some local remedies that might work.
Exactly. So that's a thing to look at. And now going to another layer or level, what would be economic interests or diplomatic interests of Canada in East Europe, in Romania?
Well, you have to take the context, and the context is that we've had the greatest series of disruptions to international relations since 1989 occurring in the last 3 years. You had, on the political security side, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which is basically an attempt to turn the clock back to the 1930s, to a time when larger powers could strip territory by force from smaller ones. Might makes right, and the strong do as they will, and the weak accept what they must. And that is absolutely antithetical to everything that Canada believes in, and to our belief in the international rules-based order, to having a system which is grounded in respect for sovereignty and the rule of law. So that's the political security context. The economic context is, under the current American administration, you've had the introduction of a sweeping series of tariffs that have brutally disrupted the international trading system that we have evolved over the last 80 years since the Second World War. So everything is in flux on the economic side. Coming into Eastern Europe in that context, we have a sort of two-part mission. One is to assist with resistance to Russian aggression and imperialism, and that can mean working with Romania and Bulgaria and Moldova on support to Ukraine. It can mean assisting the Republic of Moldova very directly in resisting Russian interference. So we've got that political bind at the moment that holds us together, because Canada and Romania were very committed to support for Ukraine, support for the rules-based order, to reestablishing that. Then on the economic side, with the disruption that's taken place, you might know that 70% of Canada's exports go to the United States. And when you introduce a 25% tariff into that equation, it's highly disruptive, as it has been for the rest of the world. So right now, countries that believe in rules-based trading, we need to band together. So we're pursuing a very aggressive trade diversification agenda. We're looking to double our trade with the rest of the world in the next 10 years. And that gives me a very clear mandate as ambassador to maximize all the trade potential that there is with Romania, with Bulgaria, and with Moldova.
And into this line, you being here for some years, so you started understanding better Romanians, understanding the Romanian economy, products, or culture. What do you think Romania could do better to be more visible in Canada? What could we do better? What would be like an easy win?
I think of promoting some of the opportunities that are here. Promoting tourism in Romania is a good economic strategy, because the country has a tremendous amount to offer that most Canadians don't know about. But you do have that hook of Dracula to get them here in the first place. Yes. You may not want to take it seriously, but it doesn't mean you can't use it.
Yes.
In terms of promotion of what Romania produces, I'll give a concrete example. I was at the launch last year of one of a series of ferries that's being built for British Columbia Ferry Corporation, so BC Ferries on our west coast. And I started digging into this, and I discovered that they've sent something like 55 ships to Canada in the last 20 years. That's like 54 more than I had been aware of. So there might be something to be done in terms of giving profile to this. Romania doesn't, you may know, have a sort of trade commissioner service long established in the way that Canada does. I mean, you do have the Trade and Investment Agency, but you haven't had that economic focus within your diplomatic corps. And if you want to promote Romania internationally, if you really want to move to that next level, I think you could do worse than look at expanding the trade component of your diplomatic service.
Okay, so there's things that can be done, and I would go to another topic, which is next year North America, so Canada, US, and Mexico will host the World Cup, and there will be probably Romania. It's very difficult to be there after the
Doamne ajută.
The last matches, but is this football, this entire ecosystem that comes to the World Cup, from what you know, seen in Canada as an important event, bringing a lot of tourists probably, or is it something that it's probably you have a much more difficult task because Romania is not so good in promoting the fact that Canada is the host and people could definitely take a trip there? It would help if Romania would be there.
Well, we think it's going to be huge. I mean, first we had the Canadian men's national football team come here to play Romania a few weeks ago, and that was their first ever match. Yeah. As I said to the team afterwards, it was lovely to see the win. It would have been nice if they'd been a little bit more diplomatic and let Romania get a goal. But the World Cup is going to be the biggest sporting event globally. And that's its pedigree. Every 4 years, it's bigger than it was before, and it's the world's largest sporting event in history. They're talking about having 5 billion people watching matches. They're running estimates that you might have 1.6 billion people watching the final. You'll have stadiums full of people from all over the world, and you'll have You'll have those visas being processed at the embassy by the team there. So for us, it's a great opportunity to set Canada on the world stage and get people to look at who we are, what we're doing, because we don't want it just to be purely sporting. We want to bring some Canadian values to the event, to get across messages around diversity and inclusion, women's rights, human rights, the things that we believe intensely are important to us. And when you've got a platform like the World Cup offers, well, you want to use that to get the message across. Canada is an economic trade and investment destination. Canada is a country with values which it believes in very profoundly.
So you'll use probably the biggest sport event that the planet has seen to instill some Canadian values and make people know more about Canada than they already know. And this takes me to the somehow final part of our discussion. And if there's not only one, you can pick two Canadian cities that Romanian should see, that everybody should see, because Canada, it's more about nature. People, when think about Canada, they don't think about cities, they think about nature. Everybody has the pictures with wilderness, Canadian.
Okay. This is a tough one because with 10 provinces, I'm always going to offend somebody.
Obviously, it's going to happen, but you can offend at least 8.
Okay, I'm going to give you a couple. All right. I'll start with my hometown, St. John's, Newfoundland, a rock in the middle of the North Atlantic, but with this incredibly vibrant culture and the most welcoming people you will ever meet. So that's my pitch for Newfoundland. Don't go for the weather, go for the music, go for the people, go for the icebergs and the whales, but don't go for the weather. For Romanians, I should probably put Montreal in the window. It's a city with a great gastronomic scene, fantastic food. If you go in the summer, there is a festival every week, sometimes multiple festivals in a week. It's a cultural melting pot, but it's still got European charm. And I'll give you Vancouver as the third one, just as a reminder. Vancouver is 5,000 kilometers away from St. John's, right, from east to west. And it is this amazingly beautiful setting between the mountains and the sea. You can go skiing in the morning and sailing in the afternoon. It has a very Asian population, lots of people of Chinese origins, lots of people of South Asian origins. And it looks very much west across the Pacific. But it is a beautiful setting and sadly better weather than Newfoundland.
And if you were to come back to Romania, what would be, again, 2 cities that you would recommend for foreigners to see?
Is it cheating to say not a city but a region?
It is, but you can say it.
Okay. All right, I'll take the out. I went up to Bucovina with the family last Easter, and it was really special. I mean, it's a completely different part of the country. It has a lot of rural charm to it, as well as fortified monasteries. And that, I think, is going to appeal to Canadians in a real way. I'd also give, for a Canadian who comes wanting that classic European experience, I'd probably send them to Sibiu, because you can get a beautifully preserved medieval city there, somewhere where they can have an experience that you can't have in North America. And it means you're going through Transylvania and you get that sort of high plateau in the mountains experience as well.
Now, another question, which is, it can be a quick one without details if you don't want to get into them, is now that you've seen Romanians, Bulgarians, the Czechs, the Slovaks, the Moldovians, the people, the Kosovar, are the Central East Europeans similar, or you find them different? Because we believe ourselves we're very different than the others, but for somebody very far away, it's like the Balkans or the East Europeans, they're the same.
No, there's huge variation, massive variation between the countries. I think of the Czechs, they're a Slavic-speaking nation, but the Germanic influences there are so strong that they're a distinct culture within that cluster. You have Romania, you've got I call it almost the Mediterranean influence, right? If Romania was on the Mediterranean instead of the Black Sea, everyone would go, yeah, it's Mediterranean culture. Instead, we're on the Black Sea, so they think of it as a Balkan culture. But it's got strong elements of the Mediterranean influence to it. Bulgaria, much more the classic Slavic. The Kosovars, the Albanian way of thinking, different again. So yeah, there's a certain commonality in the Balkans in that everything is a little bit chaotic, but everybody's chaotic in beautifully different ways.
Okay, this sounded very well. We'll quote you with this chaotic in beautiful ways. Now, wanted to ask you about books, reading. What would be a book that you would recommend for people to read from what you read before? Doesn't have to be something specific. And also in this question, but the second part, what would be a Canadian author you would recommend for us to read?
Okay. Well, right now I'm in the middle of a project where I'm reading through the joint Hugo and Nebula Award winners, so the science fiction novels that have won both the Critics' Prize and the Popular Prize in a given year. And from that, I'd say Ursula K. Le Guin, The Dispossessed, because it's an author's take, an imagining of a culture based on anarchy, and could you make it work as a social system? And as someone who's spent most of their career studying different cultures, some of which have elements of anarchy in them, it was fascinating to see someone making the pitch for it. A Canadian author, I'll give you two. Margaret Atwood, one of the great classics, has written many works that are still culturally relevant today. Don't just mean The Handmaid's Tale. But the other, I would say, is someone called Guy Gavriel Kay. He was the editor of J.R.R. Tolkien's estate. And he writes novels in his own right, which are... They're fantasy novels in the sense that they're not set in a particular real-world country, but you can always tell which country he's actually set them in. And he's got a very deft touch and a beautiful approach to world building. So.
Okay, and moving a little bit to something more visual, do you watch movies or series or not really? And if do, what would you also recommend?
I have a 13-year-old daughter, so the last movies I have seen tend to be things like K-pop Demon Hunters, which I'm not necessarily going to champion for the entire world. Although I would point out that had a Canadian director.
Okay.
It's K-pop, but Toronto has a strong presence in that one.
Okay, that exactly so. Identifying dots that could connect sounds very well. And now before we close, I would kindly invite you, Ambassador, to talk to the camera and tell to people who are going to watch our video a final thought, something you want to share with them.
Okay. Well, I guess Romania is going through a challenging time right now economically. The deficit is astronomical, and as someone who has a reasonable understanding of economics, something absolutely has to be done about it. And that means the next couple of years are probably going to be difficult. And reduced government expenditures, higher taxes. But it's the right path. There's not really an alternative to this except financial chaos and everybody getting very, very much poorer very quickly. So it's a tough time, but stay the course and bring as much transparency to public expenditures as possible, because transparency and the rule of law are the twin pillars of a modern functioning capitalist economy, and that's the key to Romania's future prosperity. So there's a couple of bad years ahead, but it's going to get better after that, and Romania is on the right track, so you're doing the right thing.
Thank you very much for encouraging us and for sharing your thoughts with us, Your Excellency. It was a pleasure to have you here, and also to have you always supporting us at the business school with our flagship program, the Executive MBA, which is a double degree program with important Canadian university, UQAM, which was actually, I think, one of the first MBAs established in Romania after 1990. So
I can't believe we've done the whole podcast and I didn't reference that with you sitting there right in front of me.
Yes, so that's
the
another
Canada-Romania MBA. You didn't mention top 30 in the world.
Yeah, so that's exactly another important thing connecting Romania to Canada. At least people in the business environment know about it, because if you browse LinkedIn, you'll find it in a lot of CVs mentioned. So that's another important connection between our two countries. So thank you very much for taking the time and being here with us. And I would like to thank again to our partners at Intercontinental Atene Palace for hosting us again, and for the people who will decide to spend some time watching this, listening to this. We would really like to have a like, and if you believe somebody else would benefit from seeing us, just share the video and encourage them to look. So thank you again, Your Excellency, for your time.
Cu plăcere, Vasile.